Our next speaker, Ala, is the territory lead for MENA in operational technology at Tenable. He is a business leader, tech savvy, digital transformation enthusiast in OT, field, and industrial sector, driven by the desire to protect our nation's critical infrastructure and create awareness around cyber exposure in manufacturing industries. He takes pride in consulting advice. Please bring your hands together for a warm welcome for Ala. Thank you.
Thank you, Samir. You get me excited. Hello, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. So I'm going to talk today about preventive maintenance, preventive cyber maintenance in our IT/OT converged world. So imagine yourself in the future having the self-driving beautiful car, and imagine that you woke up on the day that you go to work, took your coffee, and start riding the car and playing with your mobile, reading a newspaper, and on the way, you saw the car drifting. It's going to another route. So you send a voice command to the car. Where are you going, honey? So the voice came back, and it said, there's no work today. I'm going right to the cliff. And you said, what? What happened? Then he said, the attacker. I mean, you will not go to the work, and after paying the ransomware. The story is not like that. I mean, anyway, that's the message. So I'm sorry for that confusion. So back to the reality. Maintenance for cyber systems or for physical cyber systems. When we think about them, let's think about our car in this example. We take our car to the maintenance shop to change the oil, to change the battery, to test the pressure of the tires. But how many times we go to the shop, to the dealer, to check our computer in the car, the code that is embedded in our cars, the one that perceives temperature, pressure, flow, signals, and telemetry from the engine, from the different parts of your car. So these are called ECUs. I speak with so many people, and they did not understand the correlation between the physical and cyber assets. And today, I'm going to talk how important is the maintenance system in our plants industry. So if I ask you this question, would you stop all your maintenance activities in your plant for 5 years? I'm sure any maintenance engineer will say, of course not. Our pipes will break, the valves will stick, and we will have a halt production. So, this is the maintenance blind spot. This is where maintenance and operators in our plants and in the industrial sector, they don't look at these OT systems as they look to the physical world. We are inclined to the physical world. We love tangible things. We love our gadgets like Apple Watch and our mobile. So, and of course, these OT systems, they don't require oil change. They don't have a stress fractures to monitor. So that means we are not taking care of them like those heavy equipments and machinery in the plants. However, in one of the examples, in one of the projects we had previously in a utilities company, we found out while examining the firmware on their OT systems that since 5 years, they did not update it. What does that mean from a cybersecurity perspective? This is my today's talk, and I hope that I will bring you the message and the value of it and how it correlates with the IT/OT convergence. So, 5 main arguments I want to talk to you and go through them with you today. The first argument is the maintenance blind spot, which we spoke about. The second is the IT/OT evolution and the convergence of that evolution. The third is the changed threat landscape, which is very important because this is where the risk is. And of course, we have the compliance pressure from the government, and lastly, the skills gap that we have. So what are OT systems? Like in the car example, which I missed, these are computers, software, hardware, firmware, network devices that works together to collect telemetry, temperature, flow, and etc. from those devices and heavy equipments in the field, and then analyze them and send back a control command to adjust these production parameters. So these systems has been around since the very old times, 950s. And those systems, actually, they are heterogeneous. They are coming from so many vendors, and they are proprietary, meaning they have the exclusive knowledge that needs those engineers to work in them. So some of the examples, which is familiar, and many people know them, is the PLC, the RTU, and the HMI, and the DCS and the SCADA. However, when I speak with other folks in the IT industry, especially information security, I found out that they don't know how comprehensive this environment is. There are a lot of other systems in this network: vibration monitoring systems, diagnostic systems, and alarm management systems, etc. This heterogeneous environment needs a special knowledge, and this is the fire and gas alarm systems, and etc. So where we find these OT systems, actually we find them everywhere, in all the aspects of our life. In the water that we drink, and in the electricity that's transmitted to our homes, and in the transportation systems, the logistics, the farms that, the harvesters that bring us the food to our grocery stores, everywhere. I mean, this building, we have a building management system that controls and monitors the AC, the ducting, the lighting that we see around us. So it's very important to understand where it's coming from, where we can find them, sorry. Who operate these systems? By the way, who's coming from an OT background? Two. Yeah, so statistics say you are so few in the market, especially when it comes to the cybersecurity perspective. Those are the champions behind the process. I want just to thank them for all the safety and all the utilities that they transmit to us. As we said, we cannot function as a modern society without those engineers. The main message here about the language they speak, there are hardcore engineers where they engineer the process to produce these services that we need in our daily life. Those engineers, when we speak with them about cybersecurity, the one thing I found they don't like is the bits and bytes and hashes and dashes. So when cybersecurity folks, our community goes and try to position the importance of the risk that comes from threat, we don't speak that language. And actually this creates a cybersecurity skills gap. So what is the priority number one for those operators and maintainers? It's safety. In our IT world, we speak about integrity, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. It's reversed with these engineers. They think always about safety. Wherever I go, I mean, I visited a lot of gas oil separation plants and refineries and power generation plants. Every time I go there and visit them, I have to have a safety orientation session. And I have to wear the safety equipment. And in every plant manager screen, there's a dashboard that monitors incidents. How many incidents we avoided today? How many lives we saved, right? So this is the priority number one when it comes to OT, industrial control systems environment. So how the evolution happened? Actually, it started in an isolation between IT and OT. In the OT environment, the evolution started with direct digital control, meaning in the old days, there was no connectivity to any other enterprise system in the network. We had at that time a serial-based analog dialogue, in the field bus. There was no Ethernet. There was no IP addressed assets. And then, this was the automation island days. And then we moved towards the Purdue model, where we have a hierarchy of systems connected together inside the company, from the field level to the PLC control level, to the supervisory and monitoring level, which is the SCADA or DCS, and then to the manufacturing execution systems, and finally the ERPs. Then the industry moved forward, and we are going to the internet age. This is a mesh, which means publisher-subscriber model. It's like the Amazon service, where publishers release their applications to be consumed by these IoT devices autonomously. This will become like the autonomous self-driving car, but not now, in the future. We are still not there yet. So, this is an example of how it evolved. Previously, literally, we had to send someone, dispatch an engineer or a maintainer, an operator, to go spin the wheel of a pump inside a pumping station or inside a station within the pipeline of an oil transmission line. And at those days, everything happened manually. There was no convenience or flexibility in that process. However, as things advanced, we reached the automation connected control, where we have robotics now and drones that can monitor remotely everything that happens in these sites. So we moved from inconvenience to convenience. And convenience comes with cost. There is nothing in life that does not come with a cost. And the cost of this convenience is cybersecurity risk. So this is an example of a device level when we talk about the evolution and how it becomes risky. So previously, we have these protection relays, which is used everywhere in our world. We don't, maybe some people, they don't know that these protection relays is in our homes, cars. I mean, this is the one that shut down the electricity once there's an overvoltage or current. Before, it was electromechanical first-generation protection relay. It was bulky, it had a slow response, and frequent maintenance, which is a very important aspect, not self-supervised, not connected to any DCS, and actually not programmable. Now, in the third generation, recent world, we are using pneumatics and digital protection relays, which means now it's compact, smaller, a benefit that we gained. However, it requires it has self-supervision, it's programmable and connected to the internet, meaning now any attacker can access any network device on an IT or OT level, can reach out there and cause damage. So this is what the innovation brought us. It's good, of course. I mean, make no mistake, we are not going back. We are going forward to the connectivity. So this is the attacks that happened. I mean, why it's important to show you the attacks that happened on OT industrial facilities and assets, because since the wake-up call of Stuxnet, which happened in 2010, people now become aware that these OT systems can be hacked, whether through lateral movement from the IT network to the centrifuges of the nuclear plant, or whether through a mistake by human error. So the main point here is to show you how this is the pattern of the trend, how we started with the nation-state political attacks, then we moved to ransomware, commercially mass-produced attacks, and now with the political turbulence that's happening and the wars, it seems like we are going back to square one. So these advanced persistent threats is the major risk for our OT environments. So the governments moved, and they released a lot of standards, benchmarks, that address the risk in our OT environment, in our IT-OT converged environment, actually. Because, I mean, this converged environment have a lot of other aspects that we don't look at. So an example is an IEC 62443 standard, a series of standards that organizations now in the OT industrial sector, they take as the golden standard. But in adding to that, we have ISO, we have the American Petroleum Institute, which is now the transmission lines of the petroleum use it as a reference. In addition to that, we have local standards. In Saudi, NCA did a great job in releasing the OTCC, which is targeting specifically the industrial assets and how we can protect them. These are cybersecurity controls that has to be followed by the industrial organizations. Now, and there are some certain customized specific examples by companies like Aramco, which is leading actually how we should protect our cyber assets in the OT, and SABIC, etc. So this created a pressure on people. And this skills gap is widening. Now, if we look at the OT personnel, which we saw in the previous slide, they know exactly how systems work in a plant. They know exactly how a cracking unit works and what does it need to operate it, but not necessarily cybersecurity. Actually, I mean, when I started my cybersecurity journey, this is a true story, I attended a meeting with a cybersecurity professional who wanted to talk about an attack as an example to show us the different solutions. And while he's speaking about all these different attack techniques, the protocol, the procedures, and the tools that they use, the attackers, I could not understand any word. I wanted really to, I mean, the only way was to translate what he's saying to me is by seeing his body language. So what the message here is OT people need the same language that they are familiar with to understand the risks of cybersecurity. And by OT people, I mean industrial engineers, hardcore engineers. On the same time, IT staff, they understand cybersecurity technologies, tools, systems very well, but not necessarily the cracking process in an oil and gas company, for example, or the water processing desalination plant and systems inside it. So that created a problem, a lack of visibility, and outdated equipment firmware, and undocumented protocols. How we can solve this? Actually, before talking about solution, let's talk about the perfect storm. So we have these maintenance long cycles. We have evolved systems that are now connected to each other and connected sometimes to the internet through IIoT. We have the convergence and the compliance pressure. And we have, of course, the attackers with a changed threat landscape. So what to do? I mean, should we disconnect it from internet? We cannot do that. Should we stop automation? This is, again, not possible. There is no going back to analog serial disconnected control. So the only way is to try to figure out a solution that can accommodate all these challenges together from a technology perspective. So to define the problem specifically, it's really not about connectivity, not about automation, not about using heterogeneous systems. These are all can help us in our daily life. The real problem is scale, the magnitude of that scale, the number of devices in each and every plant that we have or single site. So let's take an example as a use case about vulnerability. If we really want to protect our industrial assets, we need to define the assets inside them. And let's take an example of one site, mid-size factory, which have at least 50,000 assets. So to do that, we need to have a discovery for all these assets from a software, hardware, MAC addresses, IPs, all different factors that can give us visibility. Take a CVE and try to identify this CVE firmware that is affected and the versions of this CVE that can map out to those devices. If we use a manual way, that is really going to take maybe tens of engineers and computation to compute using manual tools, and they will not be able to reach out a conclusion where are our risks and the gaps. So to have a better, adding to that, if this vulnerability is now multiplied by thousands of times, like in 2020, 18,000 vulnerability released, and now we want to map them all to those assets that we need to discover. If we are still using manual processes, we will never reach out to the risk score. So the only way forward is security automation. Automation, like the old best friend in industrial controls, we use automation for a long time. And in security, we need the same techniques of automation that can identify those assets and map them with the vulnerabilities and give us a risk score, and then we can have the right monitoring tools for each zone and conduit without affecting the production process. And this is actually the only way to do it is on stages. I find out in my engagements with customers that many of them, they use a manual process, and it takes ages until they come up with a plan that will end up not having the outcomes that they are looking for. The best way is to have this process divided into stages, and it does not have to be a moonshot. So stage one, have minor successes, and those successes can build up to the next stage, and in that way, we can have the budgetary allocation and the executive buys in to support us for the next generation security tools. So, and with that, I thank you.